How you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. So it's an early preview of Game Week 4, and I'll probably do another one closer to the deadline. But I wanted to get out a review of Game Week 3 whilst it was still fresh in our minds, talk about how my team did, and I've got some charts to show what I'm thinking regarding transfers moving forward. We're also going to take a look at the mini league as well and talk about that. And if you are new to the channel and you do like the videos, please do subscribe. I am trying to get to 500 subscribers, which for a small channel would be a really cool milestone. So if you can help us with that, that would be really appreciated. And thank you to everyone who supported the channel so far. So, manager of the week in our mini league was Phil Jones with a whopping 79 points and a game week rank of 63k, taking him just outside the top half million, which is a really good place to be at this stage of the season. It really helps that he captained Bruno, and we're going to talk about near misses in the later in the video, but that late penalty absolutely sealed it for him. That's the difference between 4 points and 20 points. And he also got defensive contributions, I believe, as well. So captaining the right player is absolutely key in any game week. He had João Pedro and Haaland up front, who got 9 points each, which is amazing, and Juve and Guéhi and Gusto in defence. Having defenders that are cheap, that are going to get you returns all in the same week, is always going to boost up your score. So well done, mate. What a great game week. I hope you can keep it going after the international break. But it wasn't enough to get top spot in the league. That goes to Randy, who got 61 points himself and he's ranked at 154k in the world. It's taken him from second to first, I believe, this game week, and he captained João Pedro. So a bit like captaining Bruno, you've just got to get someone who gets the return. He did vice captain Jordan Pickford. I don't know if he was expecting another penalty save just in case João Pedro didn't play, or maybe he was just so confident that João Pedro was going to play. Beto got a return, Mateta got a return for him, and Umbumo, Mitoma, and Dan Burns. So he got a load of points across the board. Nobody scoring a ton of points, but having consistent performers who are going to chip in here and there are really important when you don't have that one big hitter. Like, there's no Salah or Haaland in the team, those players who you think might be getting those big returns in a single game week. So having players that are going to just keep chipping in and ticking along are crucial if you're going to balance that out. So let's get into my team, and it was an absolute swing of a game week because going into final game, I think I was on like 25 points, finished on 52 points. So how on earth did that happen? Well, it didn't happen in goal. This week, Jordan Pickford, he took a week off after getting me 15 points last week, which is absolutely fine. I don't mind it. He absolutely worked his socks off last week, saving that penalty and keeping a clean sheet for me. So I'm absolutely fine with him getting 1 point. In defence is where it started coming in. I had Cucurella for a clean sheet. Again, that was lucky, right? Fulham should have had a goal allowed in that game. So I think anyone who has a Chelsea defender or a goalkeeper really kind of got away with it a bit this week. And talking of getting away with it, I got 15 points from Mark Guéhi, and I don't think I've sweated on a clean sheet like that in a while, for Crystal Palace away at Aston Villa. A goal, he got 3 bonus points and a was one defensive contribution away from another 2 points. But he was on my bench. I started Wan-Bissaka, and I was so glad that he didn't come on for like the last minute of the West Ham game. Wan-Bissaka, West Ham did get a clean sheet, and he didn't get it because he didn't play. But Mark Guéhi getting 15 points was absolutely crucial. In midfield, I also had Sarr in that game, and the fact that he got a goal. And I was thinking before the Crystal Palace game, should I have captain Sarr? I did captain Salah, and he didn't get anything against Arsenal, which happens. If I'd have captained Sa, I would have got, I think, a few more points at least, and that would have bumped up my score. And it's so easy, right, going into the final game of the game week and your captain's blanked and you think, oh, I wish I'd captained Sa, and I wouldn't be thinking that if Salah had scored a hat trick, right? So, but I did know that Sa probably was going to get something against Aston Villa because we spoke about it in the preview video last week about how I think he had 7 goals in his last 5 starts against Aston Villa. So it's not a surprise for me that he scored, and I'm glad I got his points. And Mamouche also got an assist and 2 bonus points himself. And that's, an assist from 2 starts this season that he's had. So he's getting one attacking return every 2 starts, which is good. It's just whether he can keep starting. And I was a little bit concerned that he keeps getting taken off early, which is not a surprise, right, for Man City midfielders. I'm not shocked at that. But I think whenever I see him play, he's doing really well, and Man City aren't doing really well. So I just don't know why he's not staying on the pitch more. Up front, again, this is where we've got some problems. I did actually get Welbeck's 2 points off the bench as well. So I had 17 points come off the bench. I'm good job I didn't bench boost this week because it would have been, even worse than last week when I got 10 points that had stayed on my bench. I would have got 3 this week. So I'm definitely glad I used the bench boost when I did. And it's taken me to just inside the top million again. I actually ended up with a green arrow of 10k, which is essentially a grey arrow, right? And a grey arrow is when your rank doesn't change much. But when the rankings and the green and red arrows are so hit and miss and they're so volatile, and you can decrease and increase in rank so much, to sort of stay around the same rank is quite incredible, really. So I will definitely take it, and it just goes to show there's so much luck involved, right? It was a good decision to have Guéhi in my squad at the start of the season. We talked about that. Was it lucky that he came in off the bench? Absolutely. And it would have been unlucky, really, if I'd benched him for the one time he basically scores a goal because he doesn't score that many goals. So, it's there's good luck and bad luck, and things work out and sometimes they don't. And, it's a bit like Bruno Fernandes scoring that last minute penalty, the week before he misses a penalty. And it's just, sometimes you've just got to go with it. So I will absolutely take it into the international break. Always good to get a green arrow before that. And let's move on to the fixtures quickly. So here we can see the fixtures for this game week and the captain options on the left. And it is pretty obvious that you would be captaining Salah this game week. I think it's just the clearest one to get. I don't know why, if you own Salah, why you wouldn't captain him against Burnley away. And I know we've talked about how the promoted teams at home are maybe a little bit different than away. But I think if you have Salah in your squad and you're captaining someone else, think you're running a really big risk at this stage of the season. I would just bear in mind if you are thinking of captaining, say, a João Pedro away at Brentford. I know a lot of people did that this week. That if he's playing for Brazil, he's maybe having a long flight back, and sometimes these players they get benched. And I know we're thinking he probably will start. They've not really got a lot of attacking options, but I think just bear in mind whether that risk is worth it for those players who have gone a long way for the international break, and just double check your captaincy and your vice captain just in case they don't play at all. So let's get into my team for this next game week. And I did sell Cole Palmer for Ismail Assar, so I've got a ton of money in the bank and 2 free transfers to use. I'm probably not going to use them in goal. I'm quite happy with Jordan Pickford, even though the fixtures don't look great. And Aston Villa probably will score. I can't really see them not scoring in the first 4 games of the season. That would get a little bit silly at that point. But hopefully, he will get some save points as well. And I'm happy. I don't want to use a free transfer on the goalkeeper, especially when I've got other issues in my team. So into defence, and Wan-Bissaka is probably where I'm going to be using free transfer. Now, if I was to make any transfers in the defence, that is, I don't really want to use a free transfer on a 4.5 million defender, or 4.4 as Wan-Bissaka is now, especially like in this game week, in game week 4. He's going to be on my bench most likely anyway. So there's not really much point using it right now. It's the sort of player that you'll transfer out on a wild card. I could upgrade him to a premium defender. I think that puts too much money in the defence. And as we've seen in teams that have done well in the mini league, and even with Matt Guéhi, you don't need an expensive defender to score points. I could upgrade him to a Lacroix, say, someone who's getting a lot of defensive contributions, but I'm quite happy just leaving it as it is. As we can see on the chart, though, this shows defensive points per games versus their expected goals conceded. So essentially, what you want is a player that's quite high up in points per game and quite low in expected goals conceded. Now, this just shows the first 2 game weeks of the season because I couldn't get all the data in time from this weekend's games. And Wan-Bissaka is currently ranking here. So this is pretty bad, all right? He's expected to concede a high number of goals compared to other defenders at the price, and he's also not getting many points as well. What you really want to be looking for, what I want to be looking for in these defenders, is defenders about here, okay? So we're not going to go for Ballard at the top left because, he's only up there because he got a massive um, goal and point score in one single game week, and then he's got injured as well, so he's not played a lot of minutes. So his expected goals are going to be quite low because he's played less time. But that top circle there, the sort of Van der Vens, Senessis, Vandenbergs, they're kind of where you would move to if you were looking for someone of a similar price. They're all 4.5 million. I would just say with Spurs defenders, the most clean sheets anybody got last season was about 13 or 14. So they had two in their first two game weeks. So if they were going to get the top most clean sheets as anyone last season, they'd only be getting 11 clean sheets in like the next 35 games. That's not a lot of clean sheets. So I would just look at them and say, unless they're going to go on like a record breaking clean sheet season, I probably would avoid them. And at the moment, a Bournemouth defender like Senesi looks the best option if I was going to move from Wan-Bissaka. But like I say, probably will stick with him and just ride out the West Ham fixtures. And if they do get an easy one, or if I do get some injuries, just sub him in. So into midfield, and if I was going to transfer out a midfielder, I would transfer out Marmoush. I'm not going to do it though. I quite like Marmoush. Like I said before, he's scoring all right. He's got an attacking return, and I think he is playing quite well. He's passing the eye test. He's getting chances. Both of the last two games, he has had chances which he should probably be scoring. And he has also got Burnley and Everton and Brentford coming up. He's even got Man United next, and that game could go anyway. So I would expect him to keep starting, especially now that Cherky is injured, it looks like for a while. And, it's not someone that I'm thinking of moving from. You could go for a cheaper midfielder because I wouldn't necessarily go for a more expensive midfielder because only really Bruno Fernandes above him I would be getting in. So I don't need, to save money elsewhere. I'm happy to have him in right now. So up front is where we're looking at a bit of a problem, and it's been a problem for a while. I don't regret getting these players in because they have had chances. Strand Larsen didn't play last game week. Welbeck missed a penalty in game week 2 and had another chance that was a really good opportunity for a goal that he missed. Jimenez has been on the bench couple of games now. So it is probably Jimenez and Welbeck that I'm going to use my two free transfers on. And I can really upgrade the strikers, but I wanted to give them a chance. I also wanted to see how other strikers settled in because I didn't want to start with like a Gyökeres, say, because I didn't know if he was going to start. I didn't know, how well he was going to settle in, and it's a lot more money to tie up in there, and that would have taken away from the rest of my team. I wouldn't have been able to get in Palmer at the start of the season. And whilst that didn't work out or hasn't worked out, and I've had to transfer him out, Palmer was one of those risky players not to own that could get a big score. So when we take a look at the chart, we can see that Welbeck is actually the worst performing striker at the moment in the league for his price and above. We're looking at expected goals versus actual goals scored. So the fact that Welbeck's got a high expected goals and a low goal scored means that he's underperforming his XG by the most. What we really want to be looking for are strikers up here. Obviously, Haaland is in the top right, someone who is getting high expected goals and high goals scored, but I don't want to get him. He's too much money, right? So I'm looking really for the pool of, the players that I've just circled: Richarlison, Chris Wood, Gyökeres, and Ekitike, both having two goals scored and roughly the same sort of expected goals. They're scoring more goals than is expected, so they're outperforming, they're doing well. You've got João Pedro in the middle as well, who could be an option, and you definitely want to be staying away at the moment from the bottom left. Now, someone like an Evan Nielsen down there and a Mateta, they have scored, so has a Bowen. So, sorry I haven't got this week's data. I think on the preview, as we get closer, we do another video, I'll have game week 3 data in there as well. But I think I'll be looking at a Gyökeres or an Ekitike at the moment. I think because not only are they playing for good teams, they're getting those chances as well. Ekitike puts me off a little bit if they sign Isak, which it looks like they are going to do. So I think Gyökeres is probably the one that I will go for, and then I'll just see where I'm at with the rest of it. Maybe a João Pedro now that Delap is injured. But I've never been a massive fan of João Pedro in Fantasy League. I think he kind of flatters to deceive, and he's a red card waiting to happen, but we'll just have to see as we get closer to the deadline. So overall, the strengths of my team are they're getting loads of chances. Welbeck, Marmoush, Semenyo, well, having chances. It's not like I've got a terrible team, and I do have good flexibility with the money in the bank. I can go a load of different ways and make upgrades, and I do think sort of the bench is quite good. I've had a lot of points come off the bench recently, and that is, showing that I've got a good, well-rounded squad. The weaknesses for me are obviously the strikers, that we've talked about, and the cheap defenders as well. It's something that I do need to be aware of. But like I say, I don't want to use money on a cheap defender. They're going to score points sometimes. A lot of times they're not going to score points. You have to tailor your expectations from your squad, and you can't expect your 4.5 million defender to bail you out every week. Thankfully, sometimes it does happen like this week. But yeah, let me know what you think about my team and any transfers you think I should be making. And let me know if you've got any questions as well for your own team. It's always great to hear, your own thoughts and talk FPL in the comments. Hopefully, you've had a good 3 game weeks, and it's unfortunate the international break is here, but we'll be putting out some videos over the next couple of weeks just that'll hopefully help you out with your team moving forward. So please do subscribe if you're new, and I will see you in the next one.